Hi everyone. Wow, you get a good turnout when you offer food. So I'm gonna it's just like a workshop on writing articles. So to start, how many of you have already published articles? Yay! So it's like five or so. How many of you have written articles? So more than that, five, I hope, yeah. Okay, so I'll ask some of you for some comments on how did it go. Well, we can start, like, of those who published, raise your hand again. Okay, how did it go?
It took a long time.
Took a long time, yeah, okay. Sometimes it could take a really, really long time. Sometimes it'd be a bit faster. How many revisions did you do?
One paper was just one round, and then another went through like 3 rounds.
Three rounds, yeah. So one is great. 2 is not unusual. 3, you're really pushing. That's good. Anyone else with stories about their publication?
First one was the hardest.
Yeah. Okay, and did you all get that into the journal that you chose first, or did you, yeah? Okay, there's a saying in French called dégringoler. That means climbing down, so you aim high first, and then you go down and down and down, and that's pretty common. Okay, so let's start. So you have to have a project, right? And well, maybe your lab head person assigned one to you. Maybe it came to you in the middle of a dream. Maybe you're doing it not as part of the set of projects that are common in your lab, and it's something you just wanted to do. That's fine. So, and now you want to publish it. Okay, so you have to write a paper. And did any of you have writing tutorials, writing workshops about writing? Anyone? Nothing? Okay, well, let me see, there's well, first of all, you gotta choose how to write, right? So, some of you do Google Docs. I find that's a bit iffy. LaTeX is old school, yay. Word is pretty common. But whatever it is, you gotta pick something that you can trade off with your other co-authors if you have them. Order of authorship, that's a fun topic. There are, in many journals now, as you know, you have to say what the contribution of each author is, but that doesn't really determine the order of authorship. Usually the head of the lab is the last person. It's kind of the senior slot. And the person who did all the hard work is the first person. And then it's a toss-up what happens next. And it's up to your goodwill and generosity and negotiating. Often the head of the lab will sort of say, well, this is the order. And if you're not happy, you should say something. Okay, so if you are the first author, these days, you get a benefit because, how many of you know that the APA now has you put Jones et al. If there's more than 2 authors? And there's no 3 authors the first time, it's always Jones et al. So Jones gets the benefit of showing up in all the articles and references. The poor head person never shows up. However, people who read the article will think that the last author, it's his or her idea. And that's a bit of a curse, okay? So if you're writing an article and let's say your lab head is really well known and you maybe want to put them on as a senior author because that gives you a better chance of getting your article published, that's a good thought. But if you do that, no one will think it's your idea. I mean, eventually with your other articles, it will come out that you are the genius behind all this work, but you risk losing credit just by having that senior, well-known author at the end. So if you have the choice, and sometimes you don't, forget him or her and go for it on your own. See how well you can do. Okay. Have any of you had conflicts about order of authorship? That's not uncommon. There are, I don't know if here there is some kind of mediation board that helps you with those conflicts. Is there anybody who you would turn to if you felt you were done wrong? Would you know what to do? Okay, well maybe as a group you could sort of work out something. It's not that frequent, but it does happen, and you don't want to feel ignored or misused. Okay, one other little point is, don't wait till you have everything done. Some of us are perfectionists, and that's good in some ways, but it's really bad in other ways. So don't bother about waiting till everything's done and worked out the stats and you know what the outcome is. Just start writing as soon as you got the project a little bit off the ground. And that's a really big plus, because once you start writing, you realize, oh, hang on, there was this bit and that bit that we missed. And so starting the writing early is always a good idea. Don't have someone tell you, well, we can't start, we don't know what the outcome is. That doesn't matter. So anyways, if you have a good experiment, it doesn't really matter whether you get yes or no. They're both supposed to be equally important if you're lucky. And so you should start writing the article as soon as you can. Okay, now, types of papers. Those of you who published papers, were these all sort of experimental with a couple experiments? Yes? Anyone do a review paper? No? Anyone do a short note? Okay, well there's lots of different kinds of papers. So if you have lots of experiments, well, I mean, I'm putting the journals that I know about, so these may not be your journals of choice. But you've got a wide range, depending on whether you're in multi-sensory or motor or who knows whatever you are doing. You probably have several several journals to choose from. Some of them are high profile, and you have to kind of wait till you think you got something really good. It doesn't have to be super good. It's a bit random, all of these selections. I'll show you an example really at the end. But if you have multiple experiments, so you have a certain range of journals, and like I say, don't, pick your journal, and that helps you form format and how many experiments and how much of a breakthrough it needs to be, and so on. And the point is, your paper is just like, here's where we are now. It's not, this is the final answer. Don't even think that. Just like, I've got this far and this is what we've found out so far. So just really get the stuff together, get it out, and move along. Never wait. If you have just one experiment, you can think of some journals that do short notes, and these are really a lot of fun to do. So iPerception, for example, has a thing called short and sweet. So it's like 1,200 words. Doesn't have to have experiment, just to be some demonstrations. It may not fit in with the area you're in, but if your area has that kind of short note, just churn them out, because that's really helping people understand what you're thinking about and how far you got. So they also, you know about the difference of subscription versus open access papers, right? Money, right? Lots and lots of money. So the open access papers cost anywhere, $3,000 is a typical amount. That's a lot of money. I think York has support for some open access journals. Does anyone know about that here? Yes, can you tell us about it?
I don't know how much I know exactly, but definitely the selection of papers or selection of journals to choose from was influenced by who York has a partnership with and who they do not.
Yeah, so I've heard rumors that there is some kind of fund at York if you choose an open access journal, you can apply for funds to cover the cost. I may be wrong though, so if nobody's done that? Okay, well, track that down if you can. Whoops, we lost something here. It went dark. Oh, something came back. No. Oh, there, something's happening. It's a bit unstable, like York itself. Okay. So, if you, let me try going straight in. Oh, there's water everywhere.
No, it's not there. Something wrong.
My computer thinks it's hooked up. Anyways, these short reports. The short reports can be much less expensive. My computer now thinks I'm hooked up, although nothing's showing up. Like for example, the eye perception short and sweet is $250. Yay, instead of $3,000. That's a big difference. But if you don't have the money available in your lab, and you can't get this York fund that I'm maybe dreaming about, then you can go to subscription journals. So for example, Psych Review subscription, annual reviews are actually, you're usually invited for those. Perception is subscription. PNAS, I can't remember. I don't think you pay. No, you don't pay. So there are lots of choices, and that's strange that money seems to come into the equation, but it does. Okay, if you want to write a review, that's a bit different, and often the reviews can be invited, but you can send in a little précis, synopsis, a little sort of idea about what you want to do as a review, and then they give you a first, okay, that's okay, now send us the real thing. So that is a thing in many of the journals where you send in a proposal, like just kind of an abstract and a description and highlights of what you want to do, and then, so a lot of the higher level journals do that. If you want to do a chapter in an edited book, don't. Well, you can if some really good friend has asked you, because they're writing a book and they're looking for all their friends to do chapters. And you can put things in a chapter that you can't put in articles that's not really reviewed. So it's a bit of a sneaky way to get your wildest ideas out. So it's not to be ignored at all times. But do they get cited? Does anyone buy the book? Probably not, probably not. Okay, so but like I say, if you have some really strange idea that you really like, but no one will ever get it into, you'll never get into a journal, then go with the book chapter if you have a friend who's writing one. Okay. So organize the paper. So you said you haven't had any writing tutorials or writing workshop, writing retreats. You should know about, do you know about the APA tutorials? There's a whole bunch of tutorials on the web. I think I have one here. Yeah, this one here. What happens if I click this? Let's see. Not much. Oh, there we go. Something happened. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not on the web, so because it keeps bothering me. Anyways, you can go there, and they give you some sample articles. This is the link to sample articles, as it says. But they're actual sample articles, so they may not be all that relevant. What we like to use is this one here, which we call the APA tutorial. Okay, so it's like an APA article, but you've got to fill in the blanks. So that's the title. Put your name, put your institution, corresponding, and put a running head, and make an abstract. So it tells you what you should have in your abstract. You usually put a little number here with the number of words in your abstract. And keywords are sometimes hard to come up with, but what's it all about? You know, it could be 4 words that describe what it's all about. They should be words that are really common, you know, like motion, perception, simple things. So I'll leave this file with Huan Yi, so you can get it from her. Okay, this is really basic stuff, right? This is the first paragraph. It should start with an interesting narrative. So this is designed to help you write the article just from rough. And it's not, it says it's APA style, but it's not. It's probably some things are not. Like I have it spaced 1.5 instead of 2. You're supposed to space APA articles by 2 line spaces. I find that just too. Plus, you're not writing this, even though it says APA style, you're not writing this for the APA Editor Award. You're writing it for the reviewers. So you really want to make it accessible, easy to read for the reviewers. So if you put it in at 1.5 spaces or it should be more than 1 per line, that's probably okay. And, so this is how you use this copy. And so like here it says always double space. Okay, you don't need to do that. Margins, big margins like that here. Now all those big margins and double spacing were because people had these as paper things. You remember things? They had them on paper, and they would need the space to scribble all their notes on the margins when they were doing reviews. Okay, that's not really the case anymore, so you can take a few liberties with that. There's some clues about how to cite the text and headings. You can look all that up, methods, participants, and so on. So what this also should say is about consent. You got to describe your consent, who it's from, what the participants did. Do they give written consent? Do they give oral consent? So you have to give all of that. Oops, sorry, and spell it correctly. Okay. Methods, results, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. And when you get to figures, okay, so APA style is there are no figures in the text. You know, it says insert figure 1 here, and at the end of the text there's sort of caption figure 1, caption figure 2, and then separately there's actually figure 1, figure 2. Remember that is the publication standard. That's what you have to submit at the last moment. Never ever submit that as the initial copy of the journal, because reviewers will be totally pissed. They don't want to, oh my God, what's the caption here, and they have to look there, what's the figure, and they have to look there. So just do that. Put the figures in the text with the captions, break the rules, and you'll keep the reviewers happy, and that's the idea. Okay, so discussion, there you go. This is really straightforward. So writing an article is like the simplest thing in the world. The format is so straightforward. Don't get carried away with why you did it. And it's not a history. It's never a history lesson. Don't say how you got there. You can have lots of references to old and fabulous articles from long ago, but don't say, we did this and that didn't work, and we did that and that didn't work, and Jim did this and that didn't work. And so it's not a history document. It's just, here's the idea, here's the data, here's our conclusions. And don't bother going beyond that. Sometimes history's fun, but that's special articles. Okay, so that's the tutor. So you should have something like that. And when you do the writing, you should have to check at least for the final version. Well, half of the time the editors are going to tell you at the final version, well, you need to do this and this, you forgot to do that and that. They'll say, you missed those references, and they need to be in such and such a style. Okay. So it's nice to have a template article. Now, it could be an article that someone else in your lab has already written. That's perfectly fine. And you just kind of replace, copy and paste, and off you go. But it's kind of hard to just try and make an article by yourself with nothing. So use a template. Just a few points of advice that just be really simple. This should be understandable. We have this wonderful community where you can use jargon and talk about high-level ideas with a few acronyms and things. And lots of people write like that, and that's just not accessible to other people. You really want to you've been paid money to do this. This is your life's passion. You found something, you want to share it. So make sure it's something, just simplify it so that your mom would know what you were saying. Maybe not too much, but enough so it really just flows by. You don't want people to stop and think, like never use abbreviations. Everyone likes to put in 3-letter abbreviations for something they defined up front. Reviewers, they come to that later on, think, what is that? And then they have to do this search, find SBA, and look through, here's an SBA, and they find out what it was, and then they forgot it, and a couple of pages later they've forgotten it again. So this is not ink, you're not actually, so you can write it out. Don't bother shortening it. So get your work out as much as you can, because it's important that you do that, because that's why you're here. Organizing references, everybody have something, Zotero or, yeah, I never got into that. That was too complicated for me. But I work with people who do. But if you do that, that's great. I just never was able to make it all work. So I do it all by manually. Either way is fine. You also find in Word, you can number references. That ends up breaking a lot. Or you can put figures in boxes. I love doing that, but it also breaks the text sometimes. And things go wrong easily when you're trying to manage the the text layout. Statistics, you all have had lots of statistics courses, I'm sure. So you do, how many do R here? Are R people? Good, R people, excellent. Okay, so R can do all your graphs too, right? So you can do your statistics and graphs. We used to do graphs by hand, with tape. I'll just describe this to you. So you have a piece of paper, and you have to make the lines on the graphs with it's a black tape you stretch out and stick on, and the little ones for the little bars. And then you'd have something called letraset, which were letters that were on a piece of paper that you rub off. So you have letrasets you rub off and make all the titles. That was very therapeutic. So, but now usually statistics programs or Excel make your graphs for you. There's lots of choices you have, and it's a bit clumsy, but it works out okay. Okay, so you got your paper, and it's just a lovely paper. You got to go somewhere with it, and you would like to. If this were China, you would be pressured, obligated to get like a certain number of high-profile journals every year. So the pressure there is very high for high-profile journals. And here, it certainly helps your CV to have high-profile. By high-profile, I mean science, nature neuroscience, nature human behavior, PNAS, current biology. We're going down here. That's data pingole. To other lesser journals, and many of the specialist journals in our own areas have impact factors that are like 1/10 of these top-level journals. But that doesn't matter so much. If the journal is what do they call it? Scanned by, reviewed by Google Scholar, then once your paper is there, it's fine. It doesn't have to be in a high-profile journal to have a huge impact. And lots of papers with the highest impact are not from the high-profile journals. So if you have a good piece and you're a little disappointed but you got it not into a high-profile journal but the next one, that's perfectly fine. For your future, for your immediate promotion, maybe not so much. But because the high-profile journal gets the attention of other people who don't have a clue what you just did. But for the people who do understand what you did, the word spreads and the article gets lots and lots of citations. Okay, sometimes you might pick the journal that published the paper you're building on. That's a nice way to go. Depends on whether you still like that journal, but that's often, you know, X did this in your journal. I feel like this is the place to submit my paper. You have to write that little cover letter to the editor. So those of you who made the submissions, 5 or 6 of you, were you in charge of actually submitting it to the website? Was that scary? Did it work? Was it okay? Yeah? How scared were you?
Like a little scared.
A little scared, yeah. There's lots of choices you have to make. And you're not sure that the uploaded files are correct, and then, you know, what happened to them. And so it's a real job actually doing the submission. And so if it's your job to do the submission, it's good to have someone who's already done it help you understand what you're doing, because there's it's just a whole bunch of stuff going on. Okay, well, I made this point before that the one you send in doesn't have to follow all the rules. Like if they say there's a 2,000 word limit and you got 2,400 words, they don't count. They count for the abstract. So doesn't matter if you go over on the abstract, they just cut it off. But on the number of words in the article, they say 2,000. You say, oh yeah, 2,000, but maybe it's a bit longer. If they complain later on, you can shorten it. Okay, so and your goal for the submission copy is that a reviewer is just going to have fun reading it, and everything's where they hope it would be, as it would be in the published article. So some people, you may have noticed, some people submit the article already in the format of the journal. It's a bit confusing sometimes for reviewers. They say, well, is this already published? But it has the same format as the published article, and so that ought to be easy for the reviewer to read. So you can make your choices, but you don't have to follow all the rules. You should just make it easy for the reviewers. Okay, so you've sent it in, and most journals have a little status thing. So once you've sent it in, you know, you're on their system, your email and your password's there, and you can go back and check the status every now and then. In many journals, you check the status and you see, oh, it's been out for review. Oh, it was denied review 3 times. Or, you know, reviews declined 3 times. Finally get some reviews. Okay, he's got the reviews, so you can sort of track it there if you're nervous, or you can just forget about it. And eventually you'll get an email from the article, from the journal, I'm sorry. And that can be what's called a desk rejection. Has anyone got a desk rejection? I've had several. Yeah, so it doesn't even go out to the reviewers. The editors have to make this first triage, and they decide, well, no, we don't want to send this to the reviewers, and they send you back a note saying, no, this has not been sent out for review. So that kind of rejection is usually pretty final, and you have to go off to a different journal. But I have found you can appeal if you have a good reason. Like, let's say you've already reviewed for this journal. You go back and you say, well, look, you trust me enough to review for your articles that you've sent me. Please trust me that I think this is a good article for your journal. Okay, so I found that worked once, but you can if you really want to. And then there's the editor's decision. You might see a couple different choices there. The editor will review it and reject it, but leaves it kind of vague, hoping that you might go away. But if it says your paper will never not be considered further, that's trying to be final. So it's like, go away. But even there, you can say, well, no, I think that's a bit abrupt. So don't feel bad about rejection. So almost every paper gets rejected at least once, sometimes more than that. I always get this, I'm so sorry not to have a more positive note to give you. I do look forward to receiving a revision. That's a good note. It sounds, I am sorry, it sounds bad to begin with, but then look forward to receiving a revision. So that's a revision. Then it could say major revision. That means we want you to run a whole other experiment. We really want to change what you did. You've got these already. Minor, those are the best. Okay, just a couple of terms to change. Accepted without revisions. Okay, you may get one of those in your life, if that. I don't remember if I did get one. It's been a long time. So the minor revisions part one is the one you're hoping for. Okay, so you got so let's say you got something with revisions. Now what do? So those of you who had papers in, you said you had 3 revisions at one point. You had one article with three cycles. So that's a lot of work. I'm going to show you some examples of what reviewers can do to ruin your life. And you'll see that some of these responses to reviewers can be more work than your article. And that's just the way it is. These reviewers are not paid, right? They're just people like you and me, and they normally don't get really weird. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have an agenda. So you can get all kinds of reviews. So you have to be ready to respond to all of them. I'm going to show you some examples in a moment, but when you get the reviews, you and your co-authors, someone goes through and highlights, because the reviewers, they talk, they go on for a big paragraph or something, and you want to highlight which one in that paragraph was really the point. And one of you writes the response, the first pass writes the response. So when you do the review, you don't revise the article. That's the last thing you do. First thing you do is you write the letter of what you're going to do to those comments. Don't do anything about the article. Forget about the article. Your goal now is, what am I doing with these comments? How am I going to respond? So one person goes through and sort of makes a draft. I'll show you an example of drafts. And you pass it around, and everybody sort of adds in. When you're all done, and everybody likes that, then you go back to the article and put the bits, and you'd be surprised when you do that in the article. You didn't really, like the response reviewer might have been like 20 pages long, but the actual pieces that are changed may be very small. One thing is, especially with higher profile journals, the faster you get your response back, the more likely the reviewers will go, oh, well, okay. If you wait, you can wait up to 3 months usually, and sometimes you need that time, and that's fine. But if you can respond like within the week, you get some kind of power points, and it seems to go faster. And I'll give you some ideas about what to do with difficult reviewers. Reviewers that write stuff like this. I showed you that before at the other presentation. Okay, so some reviewers are pretty nasty. Here's one. So I have a feeling that the nastiness of the reviews has gone down over time. That may be just because maybe they don't want to insult me as much as they used to. But so I don't know how many insulting reviews you're going to get. But you should understand that that's just the way it is. Sometimes some reviewers are just unhappy and grumpy, and they'll send you poorly worded and vicious comments. And well, that's fine. You can deal with that. And the more vicious they are, the more you can sort of shrug it off, and the editor will be more on your side if it's a nasty review. Okay, and then multiple reviews. You had 3 reviews. The idea is you just keep wearing the reviewers down, so they eventually get tired of looking at this stuff, and points that you might not have won in the first round, they'll just kind of give up on the 3rd round, and they'll write back, fine, and then you're okay. So there is a strategy of just wearing down the reviewers. I think I want to do's and don'ts before I show you some actual articles. Do's and don'ts. Yeah, you got to respond to every comment. There's everything the reviewer puts is in your response. So we can leave out some of the bits, but and for each comment, you need to make a change. The reviewer wants to know that the time they spent and the comments they made have had a contribution to your paper, and so you make a change. Even if you don't agree, you just make some little change. You say, yes, we did that, and you say where it was. You never ignore anything. Sometimes you can say, you can talk about something without changing the paper. If your description clears up a point that the reviewer is obviously confused about, but other people should not be. You can say, well, no, this was in the paper. You missed line 5 of this other paragraph. Of course, if the reviewer is confused, and maybe you have a good reason to explain why the reviewer shouldn't have been confused, but if the reviewer is confused, that means that probably lots of other people will be too. So even if you have a good response, no, the answer to your question was right there. How could you have missed it? Well, you don't say that. The answer was right there, but I've changed it to be more accessible now. And it's, just say something and make the change, because if any reviewer is confused, then more people will be too. Okay, so sometimes in your review letter, you'll add some of the data and some of the graphs. And there's an ongoing question of do I just say, yes, I did that, or do you actually put the new graph and the new statistics in the review letter? It's usually easier to put it in the review letter, maybe a scrunched down version, because reviewers don't really want to have to go and find what you did, and if you can sort of tell them and say it's on page 8, then they'll be fine and they'll be happy. Okay, so don't thank the reviewers. So lots of people start off by saying, oh, how great these were. You can just say, those are helpful comments, period. You don't have to go beyond that. If you say anything more than that, it sounds like you're trying to get brownie points, and that's not a good idea. And never use one reviewer's comments. I don't understand why you did, the other reviewer did. That's not going to go anywhere, so don't do that. Don't pick a fight with a reviewer, unless they really are, and some are, out of line. And you feel that the editor would agree with you as well. And if the reviewer misinterpreted something and said, you're so wrong on this, blah, 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 and you see, oh, well, actually, the reviewer thought this, then you have to explain, okay, I see that you felt that we said da, 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 but we didn't really, and now we've changed the text so that that confusion will no longer come up. Okay. Right, and that's the point. If the reviewer is confused, yeah, that's a clue. Even though you can't fathom how the reviewer is confused on this point, the reviewer is confused, that means other people will be too, so do something about it. Okay, so that's the point. Okay, highlight some things. The reviews are huge and long, lots of paragraphs. Go through it, highlight the key points you're going to answer. Here's some examples, I think. What do we got here? Okay. Yeah, so when you got the reviews back and you finished you have to have a little blurb at the beginning, and it's usually something like this, right? So here, it's supposed to be a neutral compliment to the reviewers. Thank you for the comments. They answered their concerns, described our change of vision. Okay, so there are some light edits, improvements here, replacement of, did some things. Okay, now as the editor will require, and often in a journal you're supposed to submit 2 versions of the revisions. Did you guys do that? Usually one with markup and one without. Okay, so the markup one, you put all the changes in red. Now don't just put in the track changes from Word. That's not okay, because you don't want to put in red all the sort of typos you corrected. You don't do that. So you just want the couple of lines that are key to be in red. So just go and red ink them. Don't use the track changes for that. I hope this will be acceptable. Okay, so the letter can be really short like that. Best wishes. Me. Okay. Okay, just for fun. That was this one. I did get a good review once. This is it. So I thought I'd share it because, well, you don't get many of these. So this was nice. And we thank the reviewer. Reviewers are sometimes on your side, and they'll say so. They're not supposed to say, publish this. The reviewer is not supposed to say, I want this published. This should be published. That's not supposed to be in the reviewer's text at all. That's the editor's job. But the reviewer can be excited, as this one is, and you can thank them. Okay. And then you get to show that to all your friends. Here's another example. It's very simple. Thank the reviewers. 3 issues: offline, TMS, online, dresses, along the rain, comments below, and then boom, boom, boom. Now, once you pass your letter of response, so this is a super important thing. So writing the paper is half of it. The other half is the response to the reviewers. And lots of the time, reviewers are going to really improve your paper. This is a, you can almost half finish your paper. The reviewers will finish it for you. Don't tell anyone I said that. But the reviewers can make some fabulous comments, so you really want to take a lot of time on your responses, and you pass it around. And what did I say here? So lots of the time your reviewer is making typos, and maybe it's not, English is not their first language. So this one in particular was making some embarrassing typos. I go through and I correct them when I send it back, just because why not? In this case, though, the reviewer was criticizing our own typos, and it had well, anyways, that was a minor point. So when you send it in back, you have to really contrast the reviewer's comment, here's in black, and your response, here's in orange. So sometimes you different color, different formatting, whatever, so that the editor who receives this knows exactly, reviewer said this, they said this, reviewer said this, and so on. Okay, so I'll show you a couple of examples. Whoops, sorry. We're almost done. Do any of you who have submitted and got reviews, you have any interesting anecdotes from your review process? Things were difficult, took a long time, you had to kick the editor. If it doesn't show up, within a month or so, you can always send the editor a note saying, just checking on the status, what's going on. Sometimes they send it to 2 reviewers, and 1 reviewer has, left the country or something. There's nothing wrong with communicating with the editor as much as you want, and that's part of their job. They don't get paid either, and some of them do, but they won't be annoyed at all if you come back and ask. Okay, so let me see. I think this is the article itself. So, okay, one thing this article doesn't do, but you might do, I like doing now, is adding line numbers. So how many of you add line numbers? Line numbers are good. Okay, so if you add line numbers, which is just a simple thing in Word, then the reviewer can say line 18 or line 341, and it saves, page 5, paragraph 2, line 2. That just makes it faster. So that's nice to do. Okay, so titles, affiliations, corresponding author. And now you have to say declaration of interest too. Abstracts. Okay, I just wanted to point out here that there. So I'll show you the letter in a moment, but all of a sudden here's some red stuff. So that's all we added in the first. Oh, there's a bit more red stuff. You add a few little things, so that helps them know where the changes were made. Although you would have said, hang on, where is it? There it is. So here was the actual letter to the editor. Dear Dr. Chung, thanks to you and the reviewers for helpful comments, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's just standard. That's probably all you have to write in any lead into your responses, because what counts here. Sometimes the editor had comments as well, in addition to the reviewers, so you have to respond to those separately. Notice how the response is clearly different from that. So it says where to find the change, what was changed, where to find it. See page 3, thanks. Blah, blah, blah. So, okay, so you see that's a standard. And here's some extra, and here's the reviewer itself. That was just editors. Okay, so here's some reviewer comments. Okay, it's getting longer than the article itself, but that's how it is. Some reviewers sign their reviews. How many here have been a reviewer? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so was it okay?
I did for abstracts. I don't know if it's the same or different.
Okay. Did it take you a long time?
Yes, and I think what annoys me sometimes is it sounds like a rejection both from my review and the other reviewers, and then I get the revised version.
Oh, it was more of an exchange kind of review where you saw the other reviewers' comments as well?
Yeah, they usually share the entire comment from the editor, with both reviewers, after I submit.
Okay,
And
when,
then-
when you're starting out, as you were, sometimes you take days to write a review. Later on, you might spend an hour. Okay, so 'cause later on, all of the points that are being brought up are things you're familiar with, and you don't have to go check the other articles and check this and check that. So it gets easier to be a reviewer. And some reviewers will sign, as Ben did here, and some won't. It's up to you. I don't know. Does anyone have a preference? Would you sign it or not sign it? How many would sign it? All right. Power. Okay. How many would not sign it? Okay. Yeah. So I don't think I only signed 1 or 2 reviews. I like the anonymity. That you can slip in some jokes and things, and they don't know who it is. I don't know. It's part of it. It was always an anonymous system, so signing the reviews is maybe more recent. Not all that recent, but still, not everyone does it. We're a lot of blank pages here. Okay. Okay. So that shows you a bit what a letter will be. Now here is one. This is one where there was a crazy reviewer. Okay, so this, and not that one, not that reviewer, not this, that was the editor, not this reviewer, even though there are a lot of responses to this reviewer, I think it's the next one. It's reviewer number 3, or 2 or 3, I can't remember which, but one of them took weeks to respond to. Yeah, it's this one. And there was a lot of stuff to do. Okay, so you just have to do that. There's no, even though you think this guy's really gone off on a tangent and it's just trying to protect his or her own work, you still have to respond to it, and there's no getting around that. And be polite. Always be very polite. Okay, so that went on and on and on. That's going still going on here. Okay, so that took a long time to put together all those responses. Most of which did not change in any way the central points of the article, but you still have to do it. And you can see by the articles the person has brought up who was your reviewer, even if they didn't sign. So that's how it works. I'll show you one last one. Okay, this is from Salambo Connolly. She was in high school and did this great paper in iPerception, so it was a short note, and it got published, and so even in high school you can get some things out, and the reviews were pretty positive, and all the requested changes were easily put in the article, and off she went, so she has an article, and now she's just finishing her PhD. So, okay, so that was some examples. Do you have any questions about those? How long does it take? You have to suggest who you like for reviewers. You have to suggest who you'd like for editors. That's often now, as an editor, receiving those suggestions of reviewers, so you're allowed to say, I want these people, or I suggest these people, and I don't want those people. So as a reviewer, you might say, I wonder what those people are going to say. So you might, the reviewer might actually send it to someone who you said, please don't send it to this person. The editor's not bound to follow your request, and if there's an ongoing controversy, they might, let me just see, because then they can keep in mind that you'd already said, I don't want that person, and I'll have that in mind. But it doesn't really exclude that person if you put them on the do not include as reviewer list. But in your please use these reviewer list, you really should have people that are knowledgeable what you do and sane and known to give good responses. Okay, so last point, unless you have some questions, or I hope you have some thoughts, questions, I suggest you get together, maybe you want to organize a writing tutorial, bring your own article, and with some other people, let's say no more than 5 people at a time, maybe in a group, and go over it together, see what everybody thinks about how to improve it, how to do it, where to send it, and so on. Okay, so here's an example of persistence. So we had this nice fMRI. Okay, so that fMRI is the only thing I will, or PNAS I do too. fMRI is the only acronym I use because it's a bit long to spell out. People know what it is. But you should say brain imaging fMRI for people who don't know what fMRI is. But otherwise avoid acronyms. Anyways, we had this great article, sent it to PNAS. They didn't like it at all. Reviewer number 1, suitable, no. Interest, no. Conclusions, no. Clearly written, no. No. Warranted. Supplemental, okay, our supplemental material was warranted. Okay, that's good. Reviewer number 2 also was no. I only had couple of yeses. Okay, so that was really kind of crushed, right? So we turn around immediately, send it to Current Biology. Whoops. And what do they say? Solid manuscript, important issue. Okay, so it's very random. So it depends on who's feeling good that day, who the reviewers end up being. Don't take rejections as anything personal. It's just you just put stuff in and put it elsewhere if they don't like it. Recommend publication virtually as is. So that was a bit of a different review than the other ones. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. I just tried to give you some examples from papers we've written and had reviewed and reviews we've done and how to answer reviewers and so on. So writing an article is really the last stage where you should start it early, of getting your ideas you're passionate about, things you've discovered, getting it out. You have to publish stuff. And people say, publish or perish, or you've got to publish or you don't. Forget all of that. It's your stuff. You want people to know about it. So get it out as quickly as you can. In little pieces if you want. There's some notion about just publishable difference, how much of a step forward it is to be a new paper. Don't worry about that too much. It's just, if you have an idea, go for it. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Do you have any kind of advice for selecting reviewers, especially if, like, as a trainee, you're not really as familiar with how people are as reviewers?
Yeah. The selecting reviewers is not easy. And when we've had students in our lab, they always check, what do you think about these reviewers? And they ask pretty much everybody they can. And those selections of reviewers, the editor doesn't always follow that because they think, oh, here's a list of people who really like this person, and they might not get a very unbiased review from these people, so they go with their friends. So that's how editors work. So if you're an editor, it's basically a way to lose all your friends, because you basically, as an editor, you're going to send articles to people who you know and trust, and eventually they get tired of you because you're always asking for some more work. So the suggested reviewers list is good, but it's not really I can't say what percentage of actual reviewers came from the suggested reviewers list, but it's important to put in a good one, just to show that you know what you're doing. And the editor then chooses maybe those people or some other people that he or she knows will be really good on this. So don't be too stressed about it, but try and make it look reasonable, is I guess an important point. Remember, there can't be anybody that's been on an article with you in the last 3 years. So before 3 years is okay, and different journals have different rules, but 3 years is pretty standard. They shouldn't be an advisor or a previous advisor, except if it was more than, let's say, 5 years ago. So you get a bunch of names together, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world if you got a bad list, because the editor's going to ignore it anyways. Yeah, there was another. Yes?
So you mentioned that you can reach out to the editor as often as you want. How long until after submitting and not hearing from them should we reach back?
How long should you expect it takes?
Yes. So let's say it's been 2 months and that you've submitted and you haven't heard anything from.
Yeah, 2 months is too long. Yeah, I wait a month, and if nothing's shown up in a month, I send the editor a note. And don't be shy. I mean, what are they going to do? They understand that you will ask them after about a month. And some journals like you to get the reviews in within 2 weeks, and so even a month is a bit long in those cases. So yeah, just the editor's your buddy. You know, check with the editor. How's it going? We set this in a couple of weeks ago. Any news? And see what they say. And they may say, yeah, we have one reviewer who's not been answering. We might drop them and go ahead with the decision without them. So they may say things like that. So yeah, they're your friend. Well, they should be your friend. Yeah.
I have a question about choosing among like vision-related journals. So there are like.
Say that again.
So choosing among vision research-related journals, because there's like several of them: Journal
Yes,
Vision,
yeah,
Psych,
Journal Vision,
Review, Journal
vision research, perception,
Yeah, how
vision.
how do you choose among them?
Well, they have this. Each one has a style.
Mm-hmm.
So perception is kind of whimsical, wacky, cool stuff. Vision research is pretty solid, and there's also JEP, HPP, does vision articles, but you have to have about 6 experiments to go in that one. There's the vision itself, which is an MDPI journal. There's some kind of like spam journals, and MDPI has maybe 60 journals. It's from Switzerland, but one of them is called Vision, and they actually do have some good vision papers, so you should consider that. Yeah, you have to understand the style of each journal, and that's usually set by the editors who determine the reviewers who get to see your paper. So if you look at the papers in that journal and it seems to be like things like you do, then that's what you go with there.
There's another short question. So what if I don't finish like the revision in 3 months, like the deadline? Is that a big deal?
No problem. Yeah, that's happened quite often. They don't care, but you need to get a note into them before the 3 months, or they'll drop it from the system. Okay, so all you have to do is say, sorry, we've had some equipment's failed, and I just had surgery, and we're unable to meet the deadline. You don't even have to get any reason at all. You say, I'm unable to meet the deadline. Please, I need an extension. And they never say no. They never ever say no. But they need to know that. Otherwise, if you don't say anything, it will disappear, and you have to make it as a new submission and start all over again. Yeah.
So if you're going to be publishing like your first article, would you recommend starting with like student-based journals, or like could you try to get it published in like more of a higher impact journal?
Oh, well, if this is your first article and it's suitable for a high impact journal, then you're pretty special. That's very hard to do. Some people do it, and if it's suitable for a high impact journal, you know that it's really answering something fun and important and simple. It may be really important but complicated, and that's not so good for a high impact journal. It has to be simple so that their little highlight line makes the point straight away. And things that are suitable for high impact journals change over time. So now you need maybe some deep neural nets thrown in, or some open brain surgery, or something odd and unusual and difficult. What should that? Yeah, for your first article, just see which journals do things that look like what you want to say, and go with that. And it doesn't. Yeah, for first, you're going to have, if you're lucky, let's say 4 articles by the time you finish graduate school, to be competitive for postdocs. And then if you have a postdoc and 2 or 3 or 4 years, you want maybe, if you're really lucky, another 10 articles. So there's a lot of numerical things that people will look at when they're saying, okay, do we want this person for faculty? If they only have 3 articles, that's too weak, 10 articles, it doesn't matter if some of them are kind of low-level journals at all. The people on the committees that are doing the hiring for faculty are not going to be in that area that you are. They're most likely not there. Some maybe 1 or 2 maybe, but the rest won't be. And for them, it's just kind of like numbers. Just give me some numbers. For the people that are in your area, they'll know, even if it's in a low impact factor journal, they'll say, but this was a really important article, and just starting to get some citations, but it's gonna get a lot more. They'll know whether it's good or not. But the other people just, you need some numbers. You just need some numbers to get onto the next stage. And so low impact journal for the first one is fine. Okay, ready to go out there, publish some papers? Okay? Okay, well, good luck.
Oh, thank you all for being here. I think there's a sign-up sheet that we pass it around. So if you haven't signed up, please do that. It's just for us to track the attendance and to know how many come in to part. Thank you.